I rented the planetarium for one show. The stars wouldn't lie for us. I didn't rent the planetarium because I love astronomy. I rented it because constellations are just sanctioned stories, and I needed to see whether ours still fit the shapes. I knew the night engineer, Dasha, from a fundraiser where I'd rewired a stubborn dimmer backstage and earned a favor that pretended not to be a favor. When I texted, she answered with a shrug emoji and the only rule institutions whisper after midnight. Keep it quiet, keep it brief, clean up the evidence that can be cleaned. At 11:40 p.m., she handed me a ring of keys and a paper cup of coffee that tasted like a bad decision trying to be useful. 45 minutes, she said, waving toward the domed theater. I'm running calibration files. Nobody will bother you if the door's locked. And if you're going to break a heart, at least point at a nebula while you do it. I wasn't planning to break anything. I wasn't planning to fix it either. I had a pocket full of quarters that I wasn't going to need, and a sentence I didn't want to say in any room that remembered the afternoon. At 11:52, my phone lit with a message I could recite from muscle memory. Debrief ran long, quick drink turned into a team toast, might crash at the office, don't wait up. I don't know why it still impressed me with its grammar. Lisa doesn't lie, she arranges. She manages donors and danishes and disasters with the same efficient mouth. For a year we'd been excellent at being reasonable. Our calendar behaved, the dishes didn't audition for metaphor, our bodies treated heat like a budget line. Then the ops lead showed up. The kind of man rooms obey without having to be told, with gaffer in his tote and patience in his shoulders. Tom. He stands the exact respectful step from married women that makes husbands feel extravagant for being suspicious. The dome seats are steep enough to make you confess in self-defense. I sat in the middle row, hands on my knees like a student waiting for the sky to begin. The Zeiss projector in the center looked like a tame sea urchin. The control panel screens showed a flat map of a sky that belonged to nobody. I killed the house lights, brought up a slow drift of summer stars, and waited for my pupils to make promises. They arrived at 12:08, the lobby door clicking open with the nervousness of a rumor becoming evidence. Lisa stepped in first, hair pinned like a thesis, the dress she'd worn to persuade a room that generosity was a civic hobby. Tom followed one respectful step behind, sleeves shoved, tote at his hip. He saw me before she did and stopped at the line where the aisle begins to count. Men who carry after midnight learn where to end. Did you book the universe? Lisa asked, voice careful, because that would be very you. I booked a room for stories, I said. Sit. Don't lie to me beneath a sky that was invented specifically to catch lies. Tom stayed in the aisle like a pen balancing on a notebook. Need me? He asked her, not me. I need you exactly there, she said, and it was the kind of sentence that keeps cities functioning. Precise, unflattered, almost kind. He obeyed. Good men do. It makes everything harder and easier at once. I dimmed the dome to a twilight the city can't afford, scattered the Pleiades over us, and let the projection breathe. Lisa sank into a seat two down from me, then slid one closer like permission filing itself. Say it, I told her. In an elevator, she said, not bothering to let the dome forgive her. 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him. It was quick and stupid and tasted like mint and rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock. I hated him for being who I wanted him to be. I hated me for wanting to audition for someone else's lighting. The central projector whirred like a polite witness. I watched the artificial Milky Way make its long mistake over our heads and felt the familiar itch of the life I've almost been unfaithful to 100 tiny times. The hotel key I almost used, the late drive that turned into a longer one, The way adrenaline mispronounces your name until you believe it's right. Do you want me to hit him? I asked. Because anger sometimes shows up like a volunteer and you have to give it a polite job or it will steal the clipboard. I want you to choose me, she said. Not rescue, appetite. I leaned across the armrest and put 2 fingers on the inside of her wrist. Daylight legal, pulse as truth. It answered. Mine stood up straighter. The dome slid toward midnight like a stagehand who knows how a room breathes when nobody is watching. I turned the sky until Orion assembled his arrogant shoulders and pointed in a direction I was planning not to go. Invite me when you're interesting, I said. Not just when you're frightened you'll be easier to love in other lighting. I am inviting you, she said, and then softer now. I kissed her. Not apology. Jurisdiction. The dome swallowed the small sound she made and gave it back to us warmed by machinery and mercy. My hand found the back of her neck, thumb in the notch I keep for emergencies we're not supposed to call emergencies. She leaned into it like a citizen returning to a country that still recognizes her passport. My other hand slid down her side until the elastic said what laws say, and I stopped because limits are the only furniture worth owning at an hour like this. She smiled against my mouth like a woman who had decided not to be bored by her own life anymore. Tom kept his eyes on the lowest step of the aisle. If he listened, he translated it into language he could carry to the van at 9 without altering the weather. Do you still want to hit him? She asked into the small dark between our faces. I want to thank him for stepping back, I said, and I want to owe him nothing else. That I can live with, she said, and ridiculous necessary laughed. I rolled the projector to bring up a slow-motion meteor shower we couldn't have afforded as kids. Lisa watched the streaks with the same expression she uses on budgets that almost make sense. Tell me the worst thing you almost did, she said. I sat in a motel parking lot with a key I never used, I said. I stared at the number stamped into the brass until it looked like my name, and then I laughed myself back into the car. I wanted a story more than a life for 30 minutes, and then I realized the life was the only part worth being good at. I ordered a drink I didn't want in a hotel bar I didn't belong in, she said. I told myself I was practicing being a version of me who doesn't ask rooms for permission. Then I went upstairs alone and washed my face until it remembered its job. We didn't call it confession, we called it counting. I dialed up a tour, quick visit to the big easy myths, Lyra, Perseus, Andromeda chained to her rock because men stay bad at writing women they can't rescue. Pick a star, I said. She pointed at nothing specific, which is to say she pointed at everything. That one. I leaned close and traced the air above her finger. You just chose something 1,300 years late, I said. Light you're seeing tonight left when empires had different names. Are you telling me I'm not responsible for all of this? She said, a grin dangerous enough to hire. No, I said. I'm telling you our timing is the only part we get to own. The dome kept breathing. In the aisle, Tom shifted his weight the way decent men do when they plan to avoid theater. He looked at his watch. Loadin' at 9, he said, almost apologetic. Cables are hungry. I'll be at the dock. Thank you, I said, which meant thank you, and also I see what you did, and also please keep being someone I can afford to be jealous of. He left without making the door a statement. The room exhaled as if nobody had been holding it together but the machinery and our mouths. We moved seats, 2 kids at a matinee sneaking to the back row for reasons that have more to do with geometry than reputation. She straddled the line between my knees and the aisle, And for a moment we remembered the apartment with the mattress that called itself an adult purchase and the window that learned what our breath looks like in winter. We didn't undress. We didn't make folklore. We let the dome notarize intention. My palm found the curve of her hip and rested there like an oath that didn't ask to be read aloud. We learned the temperature of restraint again and forgave it for not being easy. I wanted you to take me somewhere, she said, eyes on the artificial stars. Not to save me, to make me move. You are the map, I said. I'm trying not to mistake the legend for the territory. She kissed my jaw in a way that makes a man remember grammar. You always were a little too enamored of cartography. By the time Dasha pinged the intercom with a polite warning cough, the sky had rotated us back to something like dawn. I brought up the house lights to the level where rooms remember what they're for. We stood like people at the end of a hymn that didn't insist on belief. Lisa smoothed her dress as if mercy were a wrinkle. I locked the console screens and handed back the keys. Andre, Dasha said in the lobby, the tone of a woman who has shepherded better secrets than ours. You didn't touch the planet's positions, did you? I left Mars where I found it, I said. Shame, she said. He could use a nudge. We walked out into a city that had not yet decided what face to wear. The sky over the real river had no intention of imitating the dome for free. We stopped under the street lamp near the bike racks. She pressed 2 fingers to my wrist, daylight legal, and I admired the arrogance of our sudden belief in morning. At 9, the community center smelled like lemons trying to earn their keep. Tom was already there, quiet as good scaffolding, moving tables the way men do who were told early that they could be reliable and decided to make a living off the compliment. I handed him a coffee. Thank you for being the adult in the elevator, I said. Thank you for showing up where there was a door, he answered, not meeting my eyes because some sentences have better aim when they pretend not to. Lisa moved through the room with a clipboard and a mouth volunteers obey without punishing themselves. When she passed me, she brushed my wrist, public propriety, and the morning decided not to make us perform anything we couldn't afford. We didn't tell anyone about the dome. We taped the planetarium ticket stub to the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like a ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes, when the house auditions for courtroom, we walk by the river and look up at a sky that refuses to be useful. Sometimes she texts come and mean stand next to me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we stop at the museum lobby and stare at the poster of a spiral galaxy and let it be both a lie and a useful one. We didn't stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. Light is a witness that travels too slow to testify promptly. You have to bring your own honesty to the scene. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight as if the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossip part of the city asks if we have anything to add, we say we rented a sky that tells stories and used it to choose each other in sentences big enough to outlast an elevator. The constellations kept their shapes. So did we. The names can change later. The stars are still where we left them.